Layla had always dreamed of her wedding day. Since she was a little girl, she imagined the perfect dress, the enchanting decorations, and the dream party. Now, at 28, that dream was about to become reality. She was engaged to Bernard, a young entrepreneur she met during a business trip. The love between them blossomed quickly, and after 2 years of dating, they decided to take the next step. Born into a wealthy family, Lee grew up in an imposing mansion on the outskirts of a thriving city. Her parents, Elizabeth and Richard, were prominent figures in local society. Elizabeth was a renowned architect, while Richard managed an architecture firm. Despite the material comfort, Lee always felt the lack of a closer connection with her family. Her paternal grandparents, Dr. Harold, a respected lawyer, and Mrs. Beatrice, a socialite known for her elegant parties, rarely had time for play or casual conversations. On her mother's side, grandfather George was a workaholic businessman, always traveling, and grandmother Margaret was fully dedicated to charitable works. Although Layla loved them, she felt an emptiness that no expensive gift or luxurious trip could fill. It was in this context that Mr. Haim entered her life. Haim was the handyman of the mansion, a simple man of humble origins who had worked for the family for decades. With his gray hair, a face wrinkled by time, and a gentle smile, Haim quickly became a beloved figure to little Lee. While the adults were busy with their commitments, it was Haim who taught Layla the little wonders of life. Together, they flew kites in the mansion's vast garden, the wind making the colors dance in the blue sky. Haim showed Layla how to find worms after the rain, patiently explaining the important role of these little creatures in nature. With his skillful hands, he transformed old materials into magical toys, making Lee's eyes shine with joy. It was Haim who held Lee's hand when she fell off her bike for the first time, who consoled her when her pet hamster died, and who enthusiastically applauded when she managed to swim the entire length of the pool for the first time. To Lee, Haim was much more than an employee. He was her Grandpa Haim, the grandfather that life had gifted her. The eve of the wedding. Now, on the eve of her wedding, Layla was at her mother's house, discussing the final details of the ceremony. The spacious living room was filled with samples of flowers, color palettes, and bridal magazines. Her mother, Elizabeth, was enthusiastically talking about the VIP guest list while Lee looked distractedly out the window. It was then that she saw him. Haim was in the garden, carefully pruning the rose bushes. Even at 75 years old, he was still dedicatedly tending to the household chores. Layla felt a wave of affection, and gratitude flooded her heart. "Excuse me, Mother," said Layla, standing up quickly. "I'll be back in a minute." She ran to the garden, feeling the soft grass under her bare feet. "Grandpa Jay," she shouted with the same excitement as when she was a child. Haim turned, a smile lighting up his wrinkled face. "My little Layla," he said, taking off his gardening gloves. Lee hugged him, smelling the familiar scent of earth and soap. "Grandpa, my wedding is coming up. Have you reserved a nice outfit? I want you in the front row, okay?" she said playfully. Haim seemed surprised. "Oh, my dear, I'm just a servant here in your family's house. Will I be invited to such an important event?" Lee's heart tightened. "Of course. You have never been just a servant. You have always been my Grandpa Haim," she said, hugging him again. The wedding day, when the big day finally arrived, the banquet hall was stunning. White and gold flowers decorated every corner, and gentle classical music filled the air. Lee was radiant in her wedding dress, a silk and lace model that enhanced her natural beauty. As she walked down the aisle, her eyes met Haim's. He was almost hidden among the guests, visibly moved. Lee smiled at him, a smile full of love and gratitude. The ceremony was touching, with Bernard and Layla exchanging sincere vows of love and commitment. After the "I do," the party began in great style. The dance floor soon filled up with guests of all ages, enjoying themselves to the sound of a live band. Haim, however, felt out of place. He observed the elegant guests, many of whom recognized him as Layla's family gardener. Feeling inadequate, he decided to do what he knew best: help. Discreetly, Haim headed to the kitchen. "Can I help with anything?" he asked one of the waiters. The young man, noticing Haim's advanced age, hesitated. "Sir, you are a guest. You don't need to worry about this." But Haim insisted. "Please, I would feel better if I could help." Reluctantly, the waiter handed Haim a tray with glasses of sparkling wine. Carefully, Haim began to circulate around the hall, offering the drinks to the guests. From afar, he observed Layla. She was radiant, dancing with Bernard, chatting animatedly with friends, hugging family members. Haim smiled, happy to see her so fulfilled. The incident. The night advanced, and the party was in full swing. Haim continued serving drinks, feeling useful and less out of place. It was then that the incident happened. A guest, already quite cheerful, was making awkward dance moves in the middle of the room. Haim, carrying a tray full of red wine glasses, didn't see him approaching. The collision was inevitable. Haim stumbled, and the glasses flew. Time seemed to freeze. The red wine, as if in slow motion, spilled over Layla's immaculate white dress. A heavy silence fell over the room. All eyes turned to the bride, awaiting her reaction. Haim was paralyzed, his face pale with horror. Layla, my dear, I am so sorry," he stammered, his hands trembling. Layla looked at her dress, now stained red, and then at Haim, her eyes filled not with anger, but with concern. "Grandpa Haim, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself?" The surprise was visible on everyone's faces. Layla approached Haim, completely ignoring the state of her dress. "Why are you working? You were supposed to be having fun." Haim, still shocked, stammered. I have always been an employee, dear. I didn't know how to fit in here." Lee's eyes filled with tears. She hugged Haim tightly, not caring about the wine now staining her shoes as well. "Oh, Grandpa Haim, I've told you 1,000 times. You have never been just an employee to me. You are my family." She stepped back a little, holding Haim's wrinkled hands in hers. "And speaking of family, I saved a special dance for you." Without hesitation, Lee led Haim to the center of the dance floor. The band, noticing the moment, began to play a soft melody. As they danced, the guests watched in silence, many with tears in their eyes. That night, a simple accident turned into one of the most beautiful and significant moments of the wedding, a moment that would be remembered for generations, not for the stain on the dress, but for the pure and true love it revealed.